My name is Cindy Kim Hengst. I am the convener of the Asian American Pacific Islander Young Adult Peer Learning and Wellness Group. I have two goals for leading this group. First, I'm looking forward to being able to provide space for Asian American Pacific Islander young adults to discern their AAPI identity and their faith, and having experienced and lived this life of straddling two identities. I feel that I will be able to bring some value to the young adults as an older adult now. And the second goal would be that most AAPA congregations that are a part of North American Pacific Asian Disciples, NAPAD, are not involved at the general church level. My hope would be that as these young adults experience MBA programming, that they would be able to pave a way for future collaboration between NAPAD congregations and MBA.
My name is Alexis Vaughn. I am the Justice Coordinator at NBA, and I am convening the La Lucha, the Struggle peer group. My goals for this peer group are also twofold. I would say first, La Lucha is a group for folks who identify as people of color within the disciples world, broadly speaking. And so one of my goals with that group is to encourage some theological reflection on how we talk about justice. I would say that a lot of the primary discourses for how justice is talked about in the forefront of the congregation or the denomination, is centers a white perspective, and we don't often hear from young leaders of color. So one of the primary goals of La Lucha is to really bring new voices to the table and do some theological reflection. And then the second goal is just to provide a space where we can encourage each other and lift each other up. I think part of just the identity that ministry carries, but also being a person of color, your sort of default is to defend and protect others at the cost of yourself. And so it's important to carve out a space just of support and encouragement for each other. So I'm hoping to do that too.
Hi, my name is Vera Gil Soto. I am the peer group convener for the Multilingual Latina Pastors and Leaders peer group, which is concluding here soon in the next few months. And I'm also the peer group convener for the young adults from Obra Hispana peer group. And I guess that the goals that I have as a convener for both groups, these groups are very unique, and they come out of partnership that started with Obra Hispana, just realizing how isolated some of our leaders feel within the greater church, the general church. And a lot of them are doing amazing things, like their ministry is thriving, they are growing in their sense, in their identity as leaders, but there is not so much connection with peers, with other people that look like them, speak like them, do ministry like them. And that's kind of the main purpose that I have as a convener and co-convener, to just create the space as a safe and open space for growth, for getting to know each other and to seeing themselves in each other, and realizing that their work goes beyond just their local ministry, but it's also impacting and influencing the general church in the ways as simple as just us ourselves getting together and forming these two peer groups is already having positive, I want to say, repercussions, positive results in the way that we do church as Latinos, Latinas, Hispanics, and Latinx people in the disciples of Christ.
I think the process has taken us into this, or we have arrived into this, but it began different. We were intentional into connecting people that often were involved into ministries that are not that popular, or that they are ministries that are not people who are working on prison and jail ministries, people who are marginalized ministries is what I was trying to think. So we began connecting leaders who were and who are working with nonprofit and people who were and who are working on that type of ministries, and as we kept doing that, working on that, we began to think, how could a space like this will benefit some of our leaders from some of the ethnic groups of our denomination. And I think it took shape almost organically with the work that the MBA intentionally began to do with Obra Hispana, with Hispanic ministries. We began working with an initiative that came from them, supporting or working together, supporting young adults. And then from that, we kept wondering, how can we continue that commitment? How can we continue sustaining some of these leaders? And that's how we decided, let's create a group center on Latina young adults. And then in that process, that took us into, let's imagine the same thing with the Asian Pacific Islander sector of our denomination, and in many of the other work, we also decided to be intentional into highlighting and celebrating and intentionally connect this group of people, these leaders from these sectors of our church, in order to transform the church, to put them together, to give them support, and hopefully to transform the church, because these are ministries, they are voices, they are experience, they are prophetic approaches that often, although they might be invited to the table, they have to bring their own chairs, they have to wait for their own time, and they might just get scrapes. So we want to do it different. We want to together at the table transform the church, transform the possibilities of becoming the gospel.
I'm not sure that I was super excited when first asked. It seemed like a big transition for me and something very outside of my wheelhouse. But after being prayerful and discerning the invitation, I said yes. I realized that over the last 20 months of living in a global pandemic, the violence committed against the AAPI community across the US has increased by nearly 150%. So the timing of this group coming together now could not be more appropriate. Hector mentions that there may not be spaces in the general church where these racial ethnic groups are able to get together and have a space in which they're having conversations about nuances of balancing their AAPI identity and as a Christian in a predominantly white community. So I'm grateful that MBA has provided that space for these conversations to occur. I'm grateful also to have been invited to convene the group. I believe and am hopeful that my involvement with MBA and also with NAPAD has provided me with a unique vantage point that will be beneficial to both ministries in the church. I also feel that my middle-aged experience now lends to being able to convene a group like this as a role of a big sister or an auntie to the young adults. And so I'm excited for this group to get started.
My peer group experience was really interesting and really formative for me. It was for folks who identify as advocates and activists within our broader disciples world. And one of the things I really learned just as a part of that group is that as Christians, as disciples, if we profess to be something and continue to act contrarily to that, then we're just wasting our time pretty much. And the political climate, the social justice injustices of the day are too severe for us to continue in that cycle. So if we're gonna, claim to bring wholeness to a fragmented world, if we're gonna claim to be anti-racist, to be defenders of justice, then we need to really look at how we're showing up and how we are articulating our faith. So with what I'm hoping to do with the La Lucha group is really focus on that second part, like how are we articulating our faith? What are the scriptures, the texts, the traditions, the rituals that we hold dear that can speak to us in new ways and really prepare us to be more present in the social justice movements of today.
This group of people are very and heavily involved in their local church and in their convenciones church, which I guess part of the reason in responding to the question is NBA, I believe, wanted to be part of this effort because our work is centered around creating communities of compassion, healing, and justice. And so part of this, the intention for this peer group was precisely that. For the longest, Obra Hispana, out of fear, out of perhaps even naming it church hurt, and not getting to know each other really within the general church, there is a lot of skepticism of getting involved, which there comes the healing, there comes the justice, the creating the space so that the healing can happen and the involvement can occur within these groups. And I believe that NBA wanted to partner in this effort, understanding, and just as the cliche says that young people are not the future but the present of the church, and it's real. These folks are really creating and recreating the church in the ways that they are doing it, and thankfully they are seeing it as not in silos anymore. They don't see themselves as doing ministry thinking that they have to do it on their own and even not sharing resources, because there used to be this scarcity mindset among our Obra Hispana that I cannot share the resources that I've come to found because then there's not going to be enough for me if I need them. And then realizing for them, the resources are there are plenty, the table is set, and we don't need to bring chairs, as Hector was mentioning. The chairs are there. We just need to sit and enjoy the meal together. And I think that that's part of the reason of this partnership, how this has come to be.
If I may add that, following the analogy of a meal, it's not just that there's a space at the table, it's that we want to taste what you can bring. Who you are is enough, and we want to feast together. And with that potluck, together we will reimagine the church. It's very powerful. I think in all the groups that we have been able to convene, how transformative is the feeling that I'm enough, and I am welcome, and my experience is a valid experience, and I don't have to explain to this group of people. I don't have to waste time explaining my context because they know my context. And to be able to dream together, to be able to work together, to be able to be there for each other. I mean, and I get very touched whenever Alexis, as a participant, whenever she shares, this experience was very meaningful, and I'm very touched when we have groups that have already concluded, but we find a time and we touch base again and we say hello again, and see how that journey created a community and created a support group. And it's a transformative way to and a different way to be community, and to build together different possibilities.